people. There we go. Okay, let's look at plot. You're going to use your highlighter to highlight each plot point. So when he mentions the setting, the characters, the rising action, the climax, the falling action, the denouement, and the resolution, okay? And you're going to label each of the plot points with your pen on the document, okay? Yes. Yes. And the reason I chose y'all for this one is because you all wrote on your pretest that you knew what these things were, okay? You answered the question correctly, okay? So just do the best you can. As we go through, we're going to talk about those things, okay?
The D word again?
Denouement.
What is it?
It's like the exploding moment, kind of.
Oh.
Okay, or a transition point. Okay. Okay, so after you have highlighted and noted those things, you're going to write on the sticky notes to reflect on the author's plot choices and how they contribute to the author's purpose. So why did he order these things in this way to prove his point? Okay, so that's the hard part. Everything that goes on those sticky notes is the hard part. The easy part is the highlighting and summarizing, okay? Or identifying. Okay, any questions about plot points? Okay, tone. Focus your response on the author's attitude towards one subject. So first of all, you got to figure out what that subject is, my tone people. Okay? And then you need to highlight the words that the author uses in describing that subject. Okay? So if he's talking about a specific subject, in this case, I think it's going to be very clear what the subject is, okay, and how he feels about it. Okay? But you're going to highlight words that help us to know what he feels about that. Yes, Jackson. What? Yes, your tone. Yes. Did I say you were imagery?
Yeah, you
Yes,
said this
sorry. Okay, they're flipped on here. So y'all are imagery, you guys at the back are tone. Okay? Sorry. Okay. So you guys are tone, you're imagery
one. I
here.
know I put
So we're
tone.
Y'all are imagery. I
You
apologize.
say what you had to say for tone.
Yes, okay. So you're going to focus on the author's attitude towards the subject. So the first thing that you guys have to do is identify what the subject is. Okay? And then you're going to highlight any words that help us to know how he feels about that subject. Okay? And then on the sticky note, you're going to identify the connotation of these words. In other words, is it a positive connotation or a negative connotation? Okay? Does it feel positively or negatively? Okay? And additionally, you're going to identify how the author's tone exhibits the author's overall purpose of the text. So how does his tone on the subject relate to the purpose of him writing this? Okay? It sounds like a lot, but we're going to do it all together, and we're going to go paragraph by paragraph, okay?
So the sticky notes for the connotation.
Correct, correct. Yep. Okay, let's go to imagery, row 3. Okay? Highlight portions of the text where the author shows instead of telling, okay? That is the key point to writing memoir, is showing instead of telling, okay? Because they're short. So they have that opportunity to tell this very short story. Maybe it's a day in their life, maybe it's an hour. In the case of our story, we're talking about the shooting of the elephant within minutes, okay? But you'll see how long that is because of the showing instead of telling, okay? So it'll probably be paragraphs. You'll probably see a paragraph of imagery. Yes.
Don't you use the 5 senses?
Yes, it does. So anytime you see that, you're going to highlight it, okay? But like I said, we're going to go through this together. So anytime that we come to that and you highlight, we're going to discuss it, okay? I'm going to walk you guys through this. Okay? So you'll write on the text what the most effective use of imagery was. So after we get through with the text, you'll say whether that use of imagery was effective or ineffective. And then on the sticky notes, okay,
I have super highlighter.
I can get you a highlighter. What color do you
Also
need?
needed one.
Okay, you can just raise your hand and ask that question. Who needs one? Okay, thank you. Okay, and then on a sticky note, you're going to identify why the use of imagery was effective in exhibiting the author's purpose. So why was that use of imagery important? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started with paragraph 1. And if you see one of your, if you see a plot point, if you see imagery, if you see tone, if you see a point of view, then you're going to mark that and we're going to talk about it so that we can confirm it, okay? Yes, Austin. Yeah, I'll bring you some.
I didn't know it was
you want us to highlight, like we see some of the tone, you want us to highlight it first, then ask you if it's right, or you want us to just?
You can go ahead and highlight it, and if it's incorrect, you can mark it out with pencil.
And we're doing this by ourselves for now?
No, we're gonna go paragraph through paragraph. We're gonna read it aloud, and you guys are gonna mark it, and then each one of you, y'all are gonna have the opportunity to share out, okay? Okay, Jackson, are you okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, so this text is pretty tricky, and so that's why I chose for us to do this together, okay? This is an on-level text, which means this is a 10th grade level text, okay? So that's why we're doing this together, so some of it might be confusing. Do not become overwhelmed. When you do this on your own, it will be on your reading level, okay? So do not worry about that. Okay, so George Orwell wrote this, and he was an English novelist, essayist, journalist, and critic. His writing typically addressed issues of social justice and opposed totalitarianism. In this personal essay, George Orwell describes his struggle with the decision to shoot an elephant. The following text also contains some outdated and offensive language that was often considered acceptable at the time the text was published. As you read, take note of how the narrator's personal beliefs conflict with his actions, okay? So all these things are going to help you guys. Okay. In Molmian, in Lower Burma, I was hated by large numbers of people. The only time in my life that I have been important enough for this to happen to me. I was subdivisional police officer of the town. In an aimless, petty kind of way, anti-European feeling was very bitter. No one had the guts to raise a riot, but if a European woman went through the bazaars alone, somebody would probably spit beetle juice over her dress. As the police officer, I was an obvious target and was baited whenever it seemed safe to do so. When a nimble Burman tripped me up on the football field, and the referee, another Burman, looked the other way, the crowd yelled with hideous laughter. This happened more than once. In the end, the sneering, yellow-faced faces of young men that met me everywhere, the insults hooted about me when I was at a safe distance, got badly on my nerves. The young Buddhist priest was the worst of all. There were several thousand of them in town, and none of them seemed to have anything to do except stand on the street corners and jeer at Europeans. Okay, so I think there's actually something for every single one of you to highlight at this point, okay? So go ahead and maybe try to highlight an example of point of view, imagery, tone, and plot. Yep.
Is there tone change throughout the?
They can have a tone towards different topics. Yep. So there's definitely a tone here.
And it will change, like.
Potentially, it could change, or it could just be there could be a tone towards something else.
Yeah.
Is there more than one?
For you guys, in this passage or in the whole text?
In what you just read?
I saw one really true tone, okay? But you could potentially make an argument for another one.
Are we gonna say
We are. And so after you highlight it, make a note. Remember, go ahead and look at your instructions. If you've highlighted something for plot, you need to summarize, for point of view, you need to summarize in your own words the writer's perspective. Or if your plot, you need to label that plot point. Your tone, you need to identify the author's attitude towards the subject that you highlighted. And if you're doing imagery, you just need to highlight that and then tell me whether it was effective or not. Yes?
There was one for imagery this passage, right?
I think y'all's is the weakest of all, but I would go ahead and try to find something, okay?
Okay, I found one.
Yes.
For plot, can we use resolution?
Sure. But I would start at the beginning, because the resolution goes to the end.
Not the resolution, the exposition.
Yes. Setting in characters. Okay. So So point of view, let's start at the front. What do we know about our author? He's what? He's hated, okay? He's a police officer, yep.
He lives in whatever you call it place.
Burma. Is he Burmese?
No,
What is he?
he's European.
He's European, very good. So he's a European living in Burma, and he's not very liked, okay?
He's different.
Yep.
It's not accepted.
Right? And the perspective and the tone in this situation are gonna look the same. So he's hated, okay? How do you think he feels about that?
He accepts it. He knows he's different and he's accepting about it.
Okay? Guess we'll find out. Plot? Andrea?
You know where the story takes place.
Okay, where? Go ahead and try and pronounce it for me. Speak up, please. Momian, yep, and lower Burma, yep. What else do we know? We know where it takes place. Charles?
I said, with the part he said I was a subdivision police officer at the town, that was part of the exposition because they started introducing the character and who he was.
Right?
And I said that's kind of important because, you know, he's different than everybody else, but he's still trying to do good for the people that hate him, so
Okay.
I think that's very important.
What other characters are we introduced to? Dennis? The referee? Yep. Who else?
Buddhist priest.
The Buddhist priest. So, we're introduced to several characters in this first paragraph. Yes, Erin.
Okay, for my sticky note, since I'm point of view, I write, okay, I introduced him as a European police in Burma who was hated.
Yep.
So, on my sticky note, I would write, do I agree that he should be hated, or do I disagree that he should be welcomed and accepted?
Okay, so we're not really at a place where he's kind of responded to that, so I would hold off on that until he responds, and then you can agree or disagree with the way that he responds or what he says, okay? You could talk about whether you think he should be in Burma, if he's European, okay? Okay, imagery, what'd y'all find? What did you think you found, Caleb?
I mean, I just put in the end a sneering yellow face. That's what I think.
Yep.
Similar.
A sneering yellow face, okay, so what it looks like,
That's what I was getting with.
yep. Anything else for imagery? Julia?
I got European feeling very bitter.
Okay, so what it feels like. Yep. Anything else? Okay, tone. We'll start with Austin.
The words hated, bitter, and spit describe like how disgusted he was with the hatred that he was experiencing.
Okay, yep, so he used those words not necessarily in a compassionate way. Kyle?
I highlighted the last sentence where it's like thousands of them, and it says none of them seem to have anything to do with stand on the street corner and jeer at Europeans. He seemed annoyed or fed up with the people.
Sure, so do you think he likes those people? Do you think he thinks they serve a good purpose?
No.
No, if they don't have, if I say, you don't have anything better to do than walk down the street, I'm not being very nice to you, am I? I don't feel very highly about you. Okay, what about you, AB? Do you see anything else?
Kind of the same thing as Kyle was talking about. They insulted me after I got away, when they hooted me after the same distance. You got that in your shit. He talked about how badly it got on his nerves.
Yeah, right. So we convey how we feel about something based on our word choice. Okay, so those are all very good choices. Okay, go ahead and turn the paper over. This time we're gonna do both paragraphs. Okay, and then we'll go back. So we probably won't get to the climax of our story and to the resolution until tomorrow. But we're gonna get a good start so that tomorrow you guys will be on a better path. Okay. So all this was perplexing and upsetting.